Now, an Angus bull from Turo Stud near Waroa has made over $104,000 at auction. It is believed to be an absolute New Zealand on-farm sale record. Remember back in the day with National Expo and some of those big prices, but to achieve that on-farm is incredible. The demand for good genetics has prevailed over a COVID-19 disrupted previews and bull sales. So I'm really interested to be joined now by President for Angus New Zealand and, of course, Delmont Angus stud in South Otago, John Cochrane. Good evening, John.
Good evening, Sarah.
Firstly, can you give us your thoughts on the overall successes of this 2020 bull sale season, and what are some of those other outstanding examples?
Oh, clearly the success of the Angus sales in New Zealand in 2020 has probably exceeded everybody's expectations. There was a thought going into the sale that we might have seen a softening on the market from 2019, which is also a record for Angus New Zealand. But we seem to have built on that success, and there's an old adage that says success breeds success. And I think that's the very space that Angus New Zealand is sitting in at the moment.
I'd love to know what's underpinning these prices, because I know that sort of breeding cow numbers is certainly back.
Yeah, well, I think, there's always the calf sales. Angus have been very strong in the calf sales. There's the feedlot options for people who are taking them through to not quite finished standards, and then there's the finished process finishes that meet the Angus programs that the meat companies or processors have in place. So that's certainly driving the need for the Angus genetics in people's breeding herds.
So these, branded products and supply programs is obviously some of the characteristics of these bulls that farmers are chasing, these outstanding EBVs and carcass traits and marbling, or is it really just good marketing?
Well, look, I think there's a combination of everything. You certainly can't sell a secret. So marketing plays a big part in all of this. But one particular trait by itself doesn't make a good bull. There's a combination of phenotype and genotype. And clearly, if you study the results, if you only have one of those attributes, it's reflected in the price that you get. But if you put two of them together, you have a very strong product. And that's been reflected in the Turiroa bulls. The Cricklewood bulls, the Brookwood bulls have all reflected strong phenotype with a good solid set of data sitting behind it.
You were talking there about the calf sales, and you particularly were talking there about those East Coast genetics and those big, stocky East Coast bulls and that phenotype set. Is that purely because we're still buying with our eyes in the sale yards at calves market, as opposed to, how they're going to grow out into their traits?
Well, I think clearly the calf market is purely a weight-based system. So the heavier calf in the calf market will always demand a greater price than the lighter one, because that's the way the prices work. But I think, a lot of the people are smarter than that now. They'll look about where those genetics have come from. So they'll be factoring in that, yes, the big calf's big, but it's also got some good carcass traits sitting in behind it. And that's where those maybe that extra premium's coming from.
What are some of those changes in buyer behaviour that you've seen as a positive swing in the past decade to reflect more commercial outcomes that our consumers are wanting?
Look, I think that the commercial farmers probably recognising that the diversity in the breed. I mean, there are other big bulls, but there are other smaller bulls. But I think there's something that they're really starting to concentrate on now is to get a live calf on the ground that grows out well with not too heavy a mature cow weight, because it's the mature cow weights which leave that big footprint through that winter period that people are trying to avoid. And of course, we're always conscious of protecting our environment. So if we can keep those mature cow weights down, it makes it a little bit easier.
I'd love to ask you a question actually about growth rates and through those 400 and 600 day figures that we look at there in terms of getting them away off farm before that second winter. It's got to have a better environmental outcome and a great selling point. Yet, we saw with the dry, it was just hanging on to every blade because of the way that our processors incentivise our beef prices.
Yeah. Well, I mean, clearly that's the aim of every farmer today, is to avoid that second winter, because the cost of feed through that second winter and the environmental impact that's left behind is something we're all trying to avoid. So, feeding is the key to all of that. And if we can get things off to a good start, we'll certainly achieve those, 300 carcass weight for a steer or 270 carcass weight for a heifer before the start of that second winter. And the Angus can actually deliver that.
Something I'm going to look forward to avoiding is a second go at liberating the long pool in South Island dog trails near Clinton. Your 100-day winters are nothing to sort of write home about, John. How are you keeping warm down there?
Look, we've actually the best kept secret in New Zealand at the moment. We've had an amazing late autumn and early winter. And our 100-day winters are usually 110-day winters, is what we would always budget on for feeding purposes. But you'd have to say through March and June we've had probably record low rainfall. We've had our fair shares of frosts, but the ground conditions at the moment are as near perfect as you could ever get.
And that'll be great off the back of those southern flood season. You'll be looking forward to a positive spring.
Yeah, I think maybe, we did. We certainly wet in that early parts of summer or later parts of summer in February. And, Mother Nature always has a habit of evening things up. Otherwise, we would never have an average. So maybe our rainfall occurred in February this year, and that's why we're having an excellent spell at the moment.
Now, we'll be talking about storage jams in Southland as an election promise maybe next time round. John, hey, what is one of those things that you've really enjoyed, realising that you don't have to be a tough old Southland cocky anymore and you can treat yourself in winter?
I treat myself into a 8:30 start in the winter and about 4:45 finish.
Good on you.
That's good, yeah. Good start, so that makes it a bit easier.
Oh, it's been a pleasure having you on Serious Country. Thank you so much. He is the president of Angus New Zealand and, of course, the wonderful Delmont Angus stud there in South Otago.
This is Serious Country.